from an outsider's point of view, it may look like the journey from point A to point B is a straight line, and people may look from the outside saying, oh, well, he had it so easy, I can't do that. Let me tell you, my entire life, it's been up and down. I've had many struggles where I abandoned my core ideology of delayed gratification, which we may talk about later. I abandoned that for a time, and I got into the instant gratification mindset, and it almost sent me into bankruptcy. And my wife was a tremendous support. She kept telling me all the way along that I was making bad decisions, from instead of feeling sorry for myself because of the hardships and burdens, I viewed them as an opportunity to prove myself, to prove my capabilities, and to learn that those so-called setbacks, what we call setbacks, are really just temporary steps back. And that
Welcome to Private 45, the podcast for men over 40 who refuse to settle and are ready to thrive in mindset, health, wealth, and purpose. Today, we have a truly inspiring guest, Dr. Emilio Justo. From arriving in the US as a refugee to becoming top surgeon, best-selling author, and #1 TEDx speaker in 2024. His journey is a masterclass in resilience and success. If you are looking for a blueprint to overcome challenges and achieve lasting fulfillment, this episode is for you. Dr. Justo, welcome to the Private 45.
Thank you so very much, Miroslav, and it's my pleasure and honor to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Dr. Justo, your journey started as a Cuban refugee arriving in the US. What challenges did you and your family face during your transition, and how did those early struggles shape the man you became?
Well, that's a great question, Miroslav. As a child arriving in the United States from Cuba, the immediate challenges were very obvious, right? One has to learn a new language, understand a different culture. My parents and I, of course, had to face economic adversity because we had nothing. We came from Cuba just with the clothes on our back. But then really, when you think about it further, there were also, and probably more for my parents than for me since I was younger, but there were kind of deeper psychological challenges when you have a certain identity loss, when you're coming as adults, in the case of my parents, coming as adults from a foreign country. And so the pressure to succeed and to build a new life in a foreign country and in a foreign environment is really something that very few people experience. So all these experiences combined, and as I observed my parents, their struggles and how they were able to adapt and persevere, they taught me how to be adaptable, how to be resilient, how to persevere, how to not complain and whine about our struggles. But basically, it shaped my understanding of what success is and the mindset of personal development that ultimately shaped who I am today as a physician and surgeon.
It's interesting how actually it affected in a nice way what happened to you. Yeah, by the way, I can totally relate. I understand how hard it must be to come to the different country, learn second language, and introduction into the different culture. Yes, I'm with you. Trust me.
Yes, and even more for my parents.
Yes.
For me, when you're a young child, I think children are just naturally more resilient and they can bounce back from things. But boy, when you're an adult, you don't know the language. You've given up everything that you've built in Cuba, hoping for a better future for not just for them, but really, I truly think my parents were very selfless people. They never thought about themselves. They all about me, and I'm an only child, and the reason for that is that when they came over with no money, They did not want to have a big family and not be able to provide for that family. That was their mindset. It was kind of an old style mindset. A lot of immigrants will come over and they'll have, 5, 6, 7 kids, and they can't really provide for them. My parents wanted to do their best to provide for me as an only child, and they did, and they provided for me incredible love, nurturing. There was a limit to what they could provide financially or physically. It was all the love and support that I'll forever be grateful for.
Fantastic. God bless them, by the way. Really. Fantastic work.
Yes.
Many men over 40 feel like they past struggles, poverty, discrimination, or personal setbacks are holding them back. You overcame all of these and built a highly successful career. What was the turning point that helped you push through?
Well, another great question. Truly, my life has been filled repeatedly with turning points, if you will. I don't think there was only one. It started, as we've already talked about, the early struggles of just adapting to a new culture, new language, new environment. Then fast forward as I was progressing throughout school in my freshman year of high school. In the United States, we call it high school, which would be ninth grade. So I was 14 years old. I developed a very, very serious medical issue, and I was in the hospital for 2.5 months. I had 3 surgeries. It was a really challenging time, and my, I can only imagine what my parents were going through. But during that struggle, I still stayed very focused. I was always inclined, just naturally, and not because of my parents, just naturally, I was inclined academically. And so even in the hospital, I remember my parents would travel an hour away. Our home was an hour away. They would bring me my homework every day. I would do the best that I could to do my homework. Remember back in those days, we didn't have internet. We didn't have Zoom. It's not like you could do virtual learning. That did not exist. And having missed all that time in school, I was still able, and I say this not because I'm boasting or bragging, but I'm proud of the fact that I was still able to overcome those struggles. And ultimately, at the end of my high school journey, I became valedictorian of our graduating class. And overcoming that struggle really, I think, was a big turning point in providing an opportunity for me to then go to a prestigious medical school and go through an accelerated program, which I was accepted into, ultimately graduating from medical school at a very, very young age, at the age of 23, which in the United States is almost unheard of. And then I did my 4 years of residency training. And then by the age of 27, I started my own private practice. So again, very, very young. So that was one struggle that really, really pushed me over the top. But I must admit, and I say this because at this stage in my life, I try to be transparent with people because I want to show them that the journey, from an outsider's point of view, it may look like the journey from point A to point B is a straight line, and people may look from the outside saying, oh, well, he had it so easy, I can't do that. Let me tell you, my entire life, it's been up and down. I've had many struggles. Midway through my professional career, I made some very, very, very poor decisions where I abandoned my core ideology of delayed gratification, which we may talk about later. I abandoned that for a time, and I got into the instant gratification mindset, and it almost sent me into bankruptcy. And my wife was a tremendous support. She kept telling me all the way along that I was making bad decisions, but I chose not to listen to her. And so I had a lot of struggles to overcome throughout my professional journey and professional practice. So, I mean, there are other stories as well, but the point being that from going from point A to point B has not been a straight line. It's been hills, it's been valleys, and learning to overcome those challenges and keeping laser focused, getting back on track after I detoured off the straight and narrow, getting back with a good laser focus. Uh, Really, what was something that I needed, and a shift in my perspective from, instead of feeling sorry for myself because of the hardships and burdens, I viewed them as an opportunity to prove myself, to prove my capabilities, and to learn that those so-called setbacks, what we call setbacks, are really just temporary steps back, and that one has to learn from our failures, right? And that's one thing I've learned more and more as I've gotten older, that failure is good. Failures are opportunities to learn and to get better. So I think that we should really almost encourage our youth, especially when you're young, when you're a teenager, and especially in your 20s, when you're still struggling with life and what you want to do with your life, is fail. It's okay to fail. Fail, but you have to learn from it. If you're just going to fail for the sake of failing and not learn, that's a huge mistake. But you have to learn from your failures and use that as a jumping off point to become obsessed with a greater good.
Totally agree. You just actually pointed out, and I think that's almost became cliche when I learned back in 2010 for being a personal trainer. I was in Spain, and there was those words was in a frame on a wall, and I was keep reading it over and over. I'm like, oh yeah, totally true. It was like 100% success is about 99% of fail. And I was like, oh yeah, definitely. But once you getting older and older and you actually experience it on yourself, you really understand, starting to understand the meaning of those words. It's not like, oh yeah, that's totally true. Oh, unfortunately, it's true. And like you say, it's fantastic that you learn from those failures and took it as an opportunity. I think men over 40 who are listening right now, they should, or they're gonna listen this podcast, they should realize that, yeah, failure is opportunity. It's not total fail and that's it. You just give up. Absolutely not.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. It's a chance to embrace that failure, to learn from it, and to make better decisions going forward, which ultimately will bring you one step closer to your desired goal.
Yeah. Just by the way, speaking about your second half, your wife, so do you totally agree that behind every successful man is a strong woman, successful woman?
Absolutely, absolutely. My wife has been my rock for 20 some years that we've been together, and she keeps me in line. She'll see me sometimes deviate, and she'll shake me up. She's not afraid to upset me, and she'll tell me, no, no, I think you're doing the wrong thing. You really need to focus on this. She's taught me time and time again, when I've had these challenges and these hardships, she keeps telling me, look, when life deals you a bunch of lemons, you
Hmm.
need to learn to make lemonade.
Yes.
And so I continue to learn that from her, and I take it to heart. I take it to heart because she's absolutely correct.
Yeah. It's tough love, right?
Yes, it sure is.
What drove you to become an eye physician and cosmetic surgeon? And also, was there a defining moment when you knew that this is your path?
Well, it's an interesting question because truly, to be totally sincere about it, when I first started medical school, I had always envisioned, because in my junior high school and high school days, I always envisioned myself being an obstetrician,
Mhm.
delivering babies. And then as I started medical school, and I don't know, I must say it didn't excite me as much from the standpoint that I didn't want to be up in the middle of the night delivering babies. I'm the sort of person that I need my sleep. If I don't get good sleep, boy, it's really rough for me. And and then during medical school, we had some lectures, and ophthalmology is a part of medical school that most medical schools devote very, very little time to ophthalmology. But we had a 2 week path where we had lectures in ophthalmology. And really what made the biggest impact on me is that the professors or the ophthalmologists that were giving those lectures, they seemed so incredibly down to earth, mellow, nice people who you would love to be friends with. They just seemed like a different breed, unlike other doctors like the general surgeons who were very, aggressive and arrogant, and the internal medicine doctors, were nice, but they seemed to be a little bit too what we call in the United States nerdy. I don't know if you guys use that terminology, but the ophthalmologist just seems so nice, and it opened my mind to that possibility. And then as I started looking at that career path, I thought, gosh, what a nice balance, because in ophthalmology and cosmetic surgery, you have a nice balance between being in clinic and seeing patients, because I like the interaction. I love interacting with my patients. I like getting to know them. I mean, I'm social in the exam room, more social, I think, than I am in real life. And so it's a nice balance of clinic with surgery. And in most cases, I mean, it depends on the area of ophthalmology, of course, because in retina, for example, there are people that have real severe eye conditions that are not curable. But in general, ophthalmology is a very gratifying profession, because for most people, you can bring back improved eyesight. In the case of the cosmetic part of ophthalmology, you can give people better appearance, better functionality. I mean, these are happy patients. And that's just been a wonderful thing for me to see these happy patients over the years, which keeps reinforcing itself to me. And so here I am, I'm in my 36th year of practice. So I've been doing this a long time, and I still work full time. I work 5 full days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day, and I still enjoy what I do, because I'm bringing positive things to my patients.
Wow, fantastic. You often say that lack of privilege is not an obstacle to success. Can you share some of your biggest accomplishments that prove this mindset?
Well, again, going back to the beginning, remember I didn't have what I consider privilege, right? Coming as a refugee, not having certainly any financial privilege, being from a foreign country, being Hispanic, but still, when you don't have privilege, you let your actions and your achievements do the talking, so to speak.
Hmm.
You demonstrate what you can do. And again, I've had a very, very blessed life. Have I had hardships? Sure. Have I had failures? Sure. But when I look back at my entire life and my entire career, uh, you know, I, again, I don't say this boastfully, but I mean, I've just been so blessed. I've had so many wonderful successes, starting with what I already mentioned, valedictorian in high school, then getting into an accelerated program at the University of Michigan, finishing medical school at 23, starting private practice at 27. Later in life, deciding to go on to the TEDx stage, and delivering two TEDx talks, one in Canada, one in the United States, authoring a best-selling book on delayed gratification. All the while doing all this, still having a thriving medical practice, working full time. So, to me, it just shows the fact that even without privilege, you can succeed by the power of your efforts and your determination and your resilience and your hard work. And really that's what I tell my family and my kids, that nothing was ever given to me. Nothing. I mean, some kids I know our children have friends who, I hate to say it, but they're kind of a little bit spoiled and have a lot of privilege because they come from a very successful families, and they give their kids everything, all the best clothes, cars, this and that, and it's like, no, you gotta really learn to provide for yourself. You have to work hard. Nothing, very rarely does anything come easy. I mean, every once in a while somebody gets lucky and something may come easy, but generally you have to work and be dedicated to whatever it is that you want to achieve. And that's what I'm trying to instill in our children and into the youth in general. I mean, at this stage of my life, I'm trying to preach to the young people out there, as well as your audience, which is those over 40, because they're at the prime stage of their life, right? When we're young, when we're in our 20s, we're experimenting, we don't know what we're doing. In our 30s, we're kind of starting to find ourselves and to find maybe our career. But boy, when you're in your 40s, that's the time to really, really take advantage of that wisdom. Because by that time, you've developed a certain level of wisdom in your life, and that's the time to really take advantage of that and to start achieving and be successful, not just financially, but in every aspect of your life.
Indeed, yeah. You actually made me think that it's really shame that I didn't meet you probably 20 years ago when I was in Slovakia, because 50% of my surroundings was those who you mentioned, spoiled kids. Kids of either rich parents or on some high, CEO
Right.
posts. And so for me and my friends who was, let's say it, simple, we didn't have that privilege. We just use it as an excuse, like that's it. We just literally build it a wall. We can't get there. Yes, he's lucky. His daddy actually pull him there. So he is a director without any responsibilities, but he's a director of daddy's company. Absolutely fantastic. Good for him. Us, no, we have no chance. It took me literally almost 20 years, unfortunately, moving to another country to realize this. It would be definitely easy to probably meet you that, 20 years ago. But at the same time, who knows if I would listen, isn't it? When we are young, we don't listen.
Oh, I know, boy. I tell you that's a challenge. That's a challenge. When people are young and teenagers and in their 20s, they think they know everything. They
Mhm.
think they know better than their parents. They think they know the world, and they don't understand how important experience and wisdom is in terms of teaching us, what's right and what's wrong and the proper ways of doing things. But by the time, like your audience, when they get to be over 40, I mean, they've achieved a certain level of that wisdom. And for men over 40, aging brings, it may bring a sense of maybe a little diminishing opportunities because you're getting older. But it's crucial to cultivate that resilience, certainly by that age. Because I think that men over 40 really should actively seek new challenges, whether it's learning new skills, whether it's maybe starting a business if you're inclined to do that, maybe even if it means changing career paths. I mean, that's not for everyone. Some people, like for example, I've been on the same career path from a very early age, but that's not everyone. Other people may have a change in their career path, and building that resilience means embracing life's unpredictabilities with a proactive mindset. So I think that's very, very key for anyone over 40, because I think that time between 40 and let's say 60, that's the sweet spot in our life to really achieve what we want deep down. Not to say you can't achieve things earlier, not to say that you can't achieve things later. I mean, I'm still trying to achieve certain things. But that 40 to 60, I think, is just the ever so sweet spot that really we need to make it happen.
Indeed, yeah. And as you mentioned, we all have our own speed, so it doesn't matter that somebody actually found his purpose a little bit early than myself, for example. So yeah, as,
Yes.
yeah. As men age, resilience becomes even more important, whether it's in business, health, or personal life. What advice would you give to men over 40 who feel stuck or defeated by life's challenges?
I think one, I mean, I know this is easier said than done, but I think one needs to have, as I said earlier, that proactive mindset. We need to have a mindset that there are so many more wonderful things out there in life. And this is probably, if I look back at my life, and again, I've had a very blessed life. I probably would not do anything really differently, but if I were, I would say that probably at that age, that 40 to 50-year age, that I would really be, putting myself out there, trying to learn as much as possible. And in today's internet age, what's a great way of learning? One way that I didn't take advantage of till the more recent past is things like, because I have a long commute to work. I mean, I have almost, well, it's 50 minutes, so it's almost an hour one way. And there are audiobooks. You can be listening to audiobooks at home. You can be studying. We have the internet. We have everything at our disposal. Not like the old days when I was growing up, we didn't have the internet. So if you wanted to learn something, we had something that you may not even recognize the term, Miroslav, but it was called encyclopedia. Have you ever heard that term,
Of
encyclopedia?
course, I had collection. I was big fan of encyclopedias, by the way. Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I was
So,
one of
so
those. Yeah.
yeah, but that took a lot of time. You have to open up these big books. You'd have to go search for something. I mean, it was very, very time intensive. Now everything is just right at our fingertips.
Hmm.
So I think that resilience and transferring that resilience into what I call a positive obsession. Not a negative obsession where it's a psychological or psychiatric negative, but a positive obsession where we're focused and passionate about something. I mean, there's something that we have to be focused and passionate about, or many things. Uh, if you're over 40 and you're not passionate about something, then we need to start over and say, okay, what is it that we really want to achieve in our life? What is, I hate to use the expression, what is the meaning of life? But truly, what is the meaning of life? We have to be passionate about something and be obsessed and be laser focused on achieving that milestone. But it's not that you have to achieve it in a week or a month or even a year. I mean, this could be a passion over a lifetime, but every day, every week, every month, you hit certain milestones, right? And those milestones just get us a little bit closer, a little bit closer. And as we hit those milestones, we should be able to celebrate them. And if necessary, even give ourselves a small reward, because by celebrating those small milestones, they will then give us that positive reinforcement to continue moving forward. So for me, Miroslav, it's all about the journey.
Hmm.
It's not about the destination,
Hmm.
because I would argue that truly we probably will never really hit the destination. If we do, that leads me to believe that the goals and the passions that you've set for yourself are too low. I'm a believer that we need to set goals that are very, very high.
Yes.
And so it's okay if they're so high that it may take us 20 years to get close to them. That's okay. But in the meantime, we're learning, we're excited, we're hitting milestones, we cherish that positive feedback. And so I think that again, that time between 40 to 60 is really the time to achieve this.
Yes, thank you so much that you just actually confirm something what I just learned recently, just a couple of months ago. Enjoy the journey because I started my entrepreneurship, be an entrepreneur just a year and a half ago. And I've been told, enjoy the journey. It's not about that goal because the journey is actually shaping your
Yes.
skills, your knowledge, your wisdom. And yes, thank you so much. That means a lot, by the way, for me. It's becoming
Yes,
personal.
I firmly believe it. I firmly believe it because when we're young, I think it's too easy to get fixated on hitting that goal.
Mhm.
But really, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about learning and continuing to get better and achieving those milestones. And that goal should be so large
Mhm.
that we may never hit it. We may go to our death without hitting it, but that's okay. We can still live a very full life with lots of wonderful experiences and leave a tremendous legacy, even without hitting that ultimate goal.
Totally, totally agree. Yes. You have given two award-winning TEDx talks. This one is my favorite because for those who didn't watch it yet, I really encourage you to watch. One video, I think there was with 3.5 million views, and another one 7 million views. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think so. I haven't checked lately, but yeah, I think that's right. Yes.
Yeah, very impressive. How did you balance a demanding career with sharing your message on a global stage? And what are some key takeaways from your talks that men over 40 can apply to their lives?
Well, it can be a challenge. I will be the first to admit, because balancing, in my case, with a medical practice that is super time intensive, um, but I probably decided to journey into the TEDx arena maybe later than I should have. I mean, if I were to revisit my life, I would probably say I probably should have started that in my 40s. But truly, I was so fixated on my medical practice that I kind of had tunnel vision. I was obsessed. Like my second TEDx talk, I was obsessed with my medical practice that I put some of those other things aside. As I've gotten older, I've become less obsessed with my medical practice because it's pretty much on autopilot, and now I'm doing different things. I'm being a guest on your podcast, which I appreciate. I'm doing the TEDx talks, which I hope here soon that I can start applying for a third TEDx. I hope, and but it demands a lot of time management and prioritization. So one does have to prioritize at any given time in one's life how to, what it is that you want to achieve, what's more important, because it's very, very difficult and really not good to multitask. That may be my third TEDx is that throughout my early years I always thought, oh, I'm a great multitasker. I can balance many, many different things at one time. But really, if you do the research and the neuroscience behind multitasking, is that it's really not good. You should really single task. And that means prioritize what's most important at this given moment. And so balancing medical practice, speaking globally, writing a book. Boy, writing the book was so time intensive. It was a wonderful experience. I also narrated the book, so I not only wrote it, but then after it was published, I narrated it, so it's on Audible, as an audiobook. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to leave, when I'm long gone, I wanted to leave a legacy of my voice reading my book to not only my children, but if one day if I have grandchildren or other family members, I wanted to leave that for an eternity, right? Because once it's there, it's going to be there forever. So that was a wonderful process. But so each one of these pieces of the puzzle, I had to prioritize, and it's a challenging thing. I mean, because we're all. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter if we're Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, if we're me, if it's you, Miroslav. We all are given 24 hours in a day. That's it, right? I mean, none of us are given 25 hours. We're all given 24 hours. So you have to prioritize and single task. And I think for the men over 40, I think it's important for them to understand that it's not never too late to chase whatever dream, whatever vision that you have. It's never too late. I mean, here I am at my, tender young age, doing TEDx talks, writing books. So I think we need to keep an open mind to what life has ahead of us. We can redefine our own success on our terms. We don't have to define it on other people's terms. And as far as the second half of your question, one TEDx talk was on the importance of delayed gratification. The other one is on the positive aspects of obsession. And one of the questions, if I can just mention, one of the questions I oftentimes get is, why did I pick delayed gratification? Well, the way that transpired is that I was looking back when I was thinking, okay, I want to deliver a TEDx talk. I pondered my life, and I thought to myself, what are the key attributes that I feel have gotten me to where I am today? And I thought, gosh, I've always been so proud of being self disciplined, of being resilient, and delayed gratification. I've never talked about it throughout my entire life. It's just something that's been in the back of my mind. So when I wanted to write the TEDx talk, I actually wanted to write it on all three of those. But then they told me, one of the speaker coaches said, no, 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 you only have 10 or 12 minutes. You can't, it's way too much to talk about. So you have to select one. And I thought, gosh, probably the most important thing for me has been delayed gratification. And it's not because of choice. It's not that I consciously made a decision, when I was 5 or 10 or 15 to delay gratification. No, it's just that this is how my life evolved. Being a Cuban refugee, delayed gratification was just part of my journey. It's not that I selected it, it just happened. But to me, it's very, very important because understanding the value of resisting that immediate temptation, that immediate reward, in favor of a later, oftentimes greater reward, is what ultimately I believe, to my core, I believe will bring greater rewards and fulfillment for anyone. So, for your audience of men in their 40s, this could translate into maybe, for example, strategic career moves, maybe some wise financial investments, or even maybe just nurturing relationships, whether it be family or friendship relationships that grow richer with time. I just feel to my core that delayed gratification is so important, but it is so difficult, and I can just speak firsthand with our own children, that it is so difficult to teach them this concept. I mean, they'll listen and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I get it, I understand," but having them practice delayed gratification when we have this era now of instant gratification, of social media, of everything that you want, you get right now. If you want food delivered, you can have it delivered, in an hour. You want Amazon will deliver it sometimes the same day, if not the next day. I mean, everything is instant gratification. So it's a difficult concept to teach, but I still believe in it wholeheartedly.
Indeed. Uh, if I can ask you, you don't, of course, you don't have to answer.
Yeah.
It's my curiosity for the TEDx 2025. Did you pick up the topic yet? What will you talk about?
Well, I'm still playing with it, but right now I am thinking, and it may not be as exciting of a topic, but I am thinking about um, the whole multitasking topic that I was talking about,
Hmm.
that maybe, because again, I always thought I was so proud of myself, telling my wife, telling others, oh, I'm a great multitasker. But really, I was saying something that was really negative, and I didn't really realize it, that single tasking and prioritizing really is a much, much better way of achieving than multitasking. So I'm thinking about that perhaps as one topic, but there may be some others that when I look back at my life, that I may choose. I haven't made a final decision.
Okay, let's make it surprise then. Let's make it surprise. You mentioned your book, The Power of Pause, Mastering Delayed Gratification for Success. It became #1 Amazon bestseller. Why is delayed gratification such an important principle, and how can men in their 40s and beyond use it to build a more fulfilling life?
Yeah, as we were talking about, I 100% feel that for success in every aspect of our life, I mean, every aspect, whether it be our careers, our finances, our relationships, being willing and able to pause, right? So let's use a very simple example. So let's say that we go to a fancy store or a mall. Here in the United States, we have a lot of malls. I'm not so sure in the UK if there's
Yeah, yeah.
malls, but so we go to a mall and we find something that, oh boy, we just got to have this. It's like, wow, this is so nice. And so the initial feeling of instant gratification is, okay, let's buy that right now. But I would challenge you, if you paused and you just resisted that temptation and you waited just 1 week and then you circle back around, that desire, that impulse will be greatly, greatly reduced. And there's a high likelihood that you may say, oh, no, it was nice, but I really don't need that right now. So the point being is that by, you know, being able to pause and resist that initial temptation in everything in our life, being able to delay that gratification allows us uh, to really determine what is going to be useful in our life to make mindful decisions and to keep in alignment with our long-term goals. Because when you choose the path of instant gratification, which again, I did about 22 years ago, I got off that path, and that instant gratification sent me into near bankruptcy. So you need to, I firmly feel that you need to just pause, ponder things, give it a chance to really determine what's going to be consistent with our values, with our long-term interests before just acting hastily.
Indeed. I remember when I watched your TED Talk X first time, and it made me think like, oh, that's something what I should actually apply because between me and my wife, I'm the one that lighter, like, okay, let's do it right now. Absolutely, I love it. And she's the, oh, wait a minute, she probably didn't even realize, but she's been applying delay gratification for last 20 years in our marriage, you know. So now when she's going to see this podcast, she will be like, oh, remember Dr. Rusto, what he said? I'm like, okay, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And usually I think I find that in many couples that there is what I call that yin yang,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
one person, like your example, you want it right now. And then fortunately your wife, she's thinking about, okay, wait a minute, let's think about this. And the same is true in our relationship. My wife tends to be that one that tends to pause more than I do.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but it's only been in the recent past that I've let myself maybe indulge in things that I would never have thought to do previously.
Mhm.
But I've had a whole lifetime of delayed gratification. So at this point, I don't feel quite as bad about it because okay, I mean, if I don't get a little bit of instant gratification, right? So and that's the other point I forgot to mention that when I preach about delayed gratification, it doesn't mean, okay, it does not mean people misinterpret and think that at no way, no how can you ever have instant gratification. No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, there's a time and a place for instant gratification, no doubt. We all have to have it at certain points in our life. But as a general overriding theme, I think the more we pause and the more that we really ponder whether the choices that we're about to make are consistent with our longer term interests, right? That's the power of pause, is just pondering, okay, is this really the right choice that I'm going to be making? And so yeah, so your wife sounds like she's very similar to my wife.
Yeah, I wanted to mention early they probably could shake their hands together. Yeah. You've been open about your personal struggles and the lessons you have learned. What inspired you to share these stories so candidly? And if you had to pick just one key to life fulfillment, what would it be?
Well, the reason at this stage in my life that I'm trying to be very very transparent about my struggles and in my book I go into details. I mean today because obviously we have limited time, I've just kind of skimmed over things, but I go into great detail in terms of some of the stupid decisions that I've made in my life. Um, but really, again, you reach a certain part, and I mean, I think you're starting to understand this as when we were talking before the podcast. But as you get a little bit older, I think you'll even understand it more. That at this stage in my life, I'm not trying to impress anyone. I am who I am. I feel comfortable in my own skin, in my clothes. I am who I am. I'm not perfect. I'm a flawed human being. I make mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. But really it all started, this whole journey started very simply because I wanted to leave a legacy to my family, in particular to my children, as to what my life has been about. And as we get older, I mean, I'm still blessed that I have good health, et cetera. But as we get older, we think about our mortality, right? Because I've had a number of friends, acquaintances who are either my age or even younger, who have either had serious health issues and in some cases have passed away. And so as I think about my own mortality, not knowing what tomorrow may bring, right? Because when you're a young kid like our 20-year-old, I mean, he thinks he's unstoppable. He can make whatever choices he wants, and he's going to live forever. But when we get older, we start thinking, gosh, our life could be over tomorrow. I could, whether it be health related, whether I get run over by a car, I don't know. And so I'm trying to set things up to leave this legacy that they can hopefully understand who their father was, what the struggles that I dealt with throughout my life, how I overcame them, and hopefully they will be proud of what I've done with my life. Um, but as far as life fulfillment and an important key, uh, I truly firmly feel that it's continuous growth. We always, no matter how good we think we are, no matter what our accomplishments may be, that we always have to push to be better.
Mhm.
And not just for ourselves, but we want to be able, by being better and by pushing, we want to inspire those around us to also be better. So for your audience, I would just say, keep pushing, keep striving, regardless of your age. It doesn't matter if you're 40 or 45, 50, 60, even 70. It's not over till it's over. So just keep pushing, keep striving, keep wanting to learn, because we will never learn everything. It is an impossibility. Every day there should be failures in our life, and every day we should learn from those failures and learn something new. That's my core belief.
Totally, I love it. I love it. I also like the point when you mention I'm not trying to impress anybody. And yes, that's basically that moment where there's a difference between ego and a confidence.
Right.
Because back in, yeah, probably like even 10 years ago, I thought that is the same, but no, not at all. Not at all. The modern world is full of distractions and quick fixes. We already mentioned those quick fixes, by the way. What practical strategies do you recommend for building resilience and staying focused on a long-term success?
Well, I think to build resilience, first we have to clearly define what our long-term goals are, right? We have to define them. I mean, write them down if possible. That's the best way. Once you define them, I think it's important to create a structured plan as to how to go about achieving them. And that plan can be broken down into smaller, more manageable tasks, right? So, because again, remember what we talked about earlier, that these are long-term goals. These may be lifelong goals. And so along the way, we're going to have these smaller milestones and these smaller tasks that we're going to achieve, and we're going to celebrate along the way. And then also, then we need to practice mindful decision making, meaning that when we're faced with choices, going back to the whole delayed gratification, we're faced with choices and we have to balance, okay, do we make this choice to give us this short-term dopamine fix versus waiting and delaying that gratification for a choice that's going to be more consistent with our long-term goals. That's what I consider to be the mindful decision making. Also, I think it's important whenever possible to cultivate a supportive network of whether it be friends, family, colleagues who not only encourage you but challenge you. And and I'm a believer that you have to really be very careful as to who this supportive network is, because on the surface you may think, well, this is my family, this is my brother, my sister, this is my parent, this is my cousin. Oh, they love me, they're going to look out for me. But unfortunately, I think that if people have not walked in your shoes, if they have not achieved what you're wanting to achieve, it's very difficult for them to give you, in some cases, in many cases, it's very difficult for them to give you the proper support, the proper feedback, the proper recommendations. And I have found that it's way too easy for that so-called supportive network to actually hold you back. And they may actually say to you something like, "Oh, why are you doing that? That's crazy. Oh, that's too difficult. That's going to take forever. You can't do that." They may cast a negative light on things, which you want to avoid at all costs. You never ever want to surround yourself with negativity or people who are going to bring you down. And a lot of people out there, either A, because they're naive and they've not walked in your shoes, they may be negative. And then there's a whole nother set of people who, unfortunately, and they may even be family members, but they're just going to be envious people and they don't want you to succeed. They may love you and they may love you, but they don't want you to succeed deep down. I mean, maybe not consciously, but deep down, they may not want you to succeed. And so I think it's very challenging to find that right person, that right friend, that relative. In our case, I think we both have wonderful spouses that are supportive, but it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing. Um, and lastly, we just have to, as we already talked about earlier, is we need to keep learning. Whether it be educational, professional development. We need to keep our mind sharp and focused, and I think that's super, super important for the rest of our lives.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that because I literally I last week I had uh one more free. Sorry, I got stuck. Let's do it again. I'll just do a quick response on this one. Sorry. I glitched.
It's okay.
Uh, it's interesting you mentioned that because just last week I had the world champion in powerlifting who said while he was building his career, while he was getting on that, on to achieve his goal, his mom and his both sisters was just like, why are you doing it? Why you keep hurting yourself? There are big weights, you're gonna hurt yourself. And he's been trying to explain to them, but that's a way of the powerlifting. That's a basically purpose of the powerlifting. Uh, but mom didn't want to hurt him. She just tried her best because that's a mom's mother's instinct. We
Right.
can't blame her. But that's beautiful example what you just mentioned. Yes.
Yes, love comes in many different forms, and I have no doubt that his mother loves him immensely.
Hmm.
But sometimes love can bring a certain level of negativity and can actually pull us back down. So I think it's more important to have one or two truly supportive people in our lives rather than trying to have 5, 10, 20 people. I tend to be a person throughout my whole life. I've been almost, I wouldn't call it a loner, but I'm one that I'm very private.
Hmm.
I don't really talk about my successes very much to people. I don't brag. I'm just a private person, and I think sometimes when you put too many things out there into the universe about what you're trying to achieve or what you have achieved, I don't know. I firmly believe that there is just this energy out there that may not be a conscious energy, but that there's energy of this negativity that will drag you down or will work against you. And that's why I believe in keeping it all up here, maybe having one person or maybe two that you can share your most intimate secrets. But I'm not one who just talks about things haphazardly. A lot of people, I see a lot of people who they just blab. They talk about everything in their life to everyone. And it's like, wow, I mean, that's just never been who I am.
But you are known not just for your career success, but also for giving back. Can you tell us about your volunteer surgical work in other countries and why that mission is so important to you?
Well, in life, again, I've been so blessed. I've been given so many opportunities and things in the United States. Um, so I've had wonderful opportunities to give back in terms of my ophthalmology and cataract surgery, both in Mexico with the help of Rotary International. I've done a number of volunteer trips to Mexico. I also had the opportunity back in the early 2000s. I did two trips to Cuba, my
Hmm.
home country, which was really fascinating. I mean, it was just really fascinating because it's a different country. It's a communist country, right? Mexico is not communist. So I mean, Mexico can be poor in many cases, but here in Cuba, you have poor and you have communist all mixed together, and so that was just a fascinating experience. I mean, what I learned from Cuba is certainly that Cuban medical community, physicians and surgeons, are really some of the best trained in Latin America. That's why most high-level diplomats from other countries in Latin America, they actually travel to Cuba to get their medical work
Wow.
because the doctors are so well trained. But what people don't realize, lay people, is that being a communist country, Cuba has a two-tiered medical system,
Mm,
right? So the medical system for the public, for the common people, is unfortunately terrible. They don't have the medicine, the drugs, the hospitals are just terrible. But then, almost underground, if you will, they have a whole completely different medical system for tourists and for diplomats. And the common people, the lay people, are not allowed to enter. Like, for example, if I was a tourist and I had a medical issue and I was hospitalized there, that private hospital, the lay people there in Cuba are not allowed to go to that hospital. So it's just so unusual. It's such an unusual system that you have these two tiers of exceptional medicine and very, very bad medicine. And most people don't realize that unless they really looked into the medical system in Cuba. So something I learned very early on and I found very fascinating. But in general, uh, there's a universal need. It doesn't matter what country you're in, Mexico, Cuba, uh, the UK, Slovakia. It doesn't matter. We're all human beings, right? We're all the same, and so there's a universal need for compassion and care, and so whenever we can touch other lives in a positive way, whether it's in a medical way, which I've been blessed to do, or in any other way. I mean, it just makes our time here on Earth so much more valuable. And so again, this is something we learn. I think more and more as we get older. When you're 20 years old, very few 20-year-olds. There are some, but very few 20-year-olds are so selfless that they're thinking about what they can do for the world at large. They're just thinking about themselves, right? That's your typical 20-year-old. But as you get older, you start thinking about, gosh, what can I contribute back to this world to ease the burden, even if it's just for one person, right? I mean, we can't necessarily touch millions of lives, but if we can leave this earth touching at least one life in a positive way, then we're so much better off for it.
indeed, yes. You already mentioned TEDx 2025 potentially. What's next for you? Any new projects, goals, or missions on a horizon?
Well, right now, and this gets to be a little bit technical, but one of my passions in ophthalmology and cosmetic surgery, at this stage of my career, I've really narrowed down my focus. I used to do so many different procedures, but now I do 50% of my time is developed to cataract surgery, but the other 50% is to what we call oculoplastic surgery. And the prime example of that is what is known as blepharoplasty. And blepharoplasty is what a lot of people talk about an eyelid lift, where people have heavy eyelids, the skin that's hanging down over their eyelashes. And certainly as we get older, you're still quite young, but as we get older, you'll start seeing a lot of people with heavy eyelids that can cause fatigue, tiredness, eye strain, and not to mention the fact that people just look more tired and look more run down. So there's some aesthetic quality and self-esteem that can be improved. So I do a lot of blepharoplasty surgery. And right now I'm so passionate about blepharoplasty that I'm actually teaching as many doctors out there how to do the procedure as possible. So I have a 3-day workshop in my office where they come in to see me do consultations, where I do live surgery for 2 days, and I teach them as best I can because I'm a believer that blepharoplasty is a procedure that is underutilized and can benefit so many people. The patient satisfaction is so over the top. The right now, my immediate goal is I've been teaching a lot of blepharoplasty, and I want to continue to do that because it brings me joy, and it's a procedure I love doing.
Wow.
But aside from that, we'll hopefully do another TEDx. My wife is pushing me to do another book, and I promise to have her be a part of it. The issue becomes, of course, for all of us, is going back to the fact that there's only 24 hours in the day, and so it's always a matter of finding that right balance of time and what we talked about earlier, which is prioritizing our time. And so it's a never-ending challenge, but it's one that keeps me invigorated because I'm never short of ideas, right? I'm never short of things I want to achieve. It's strictly a matter of prioritizing what that next task is. Because I'm learning over and over that if I try and do everything at one time, it's really counterproductive. It's better. You can be more efficient if you concentrate and prioritize one thing at a time.
Yes. And unfortunately for you, this podcast is recorded. So I will probably, let's say 6 months, and then next one, 12 months, I will send you this as a reminder about another book and other things what you mentioned. That's going to be that kind of friendly pinching. Hello.
I will appreciate that. Please do.
Absolutely. It will be my pleasure. Before we wrap up, what's one final thought you would like to leave our audience, especially men over 40 who wants to thrive at 45, who are striving to thrive in this phase of life?
I think to just always remember that this stage in their life over 40, that it's a phase that can really be incredibly rewarding. Uh, we talked about wisdom earlier. Have your audience members embrace that wisdom that comes with age, but yet at the same time remain curious and open to all experiences. Challenge yourself to step out of your comfort zone, right? I mean, that's one thing that I've learned over time is to step out of that comfort zone. That's how we learn, that's how we grow. We can't just always be comfortable with what we know. We have to try and expand ourselves. We have to set ambitious goals, right? We talked about that earlier. Big, what they would call in the United States, pardon my language, big ass goals. I mean, big goals, and pursue those goals with vigor. So at this stage of your life, redefine what success means to you, because what it means to you may be different than you. And going after it with everything you have, with positivity, with joy, um, embrace those failures that are going to come along the way. Don't see them as a negative. Think of them as a positive that's going to help drive you to learn more and to get closer and closer and closer to that lifelong goal. So that's really the main message. And finally, I guess the other message would be to just remember, and not to be too philosophical here, but just remember that life for each of us, even though we have different lives, we have different career paths. Some people on the surface may seem more quote successful than others. Doesn't matter. Life is an incredible blessing, and we need to take advantage of what God has set for us on this earth. And don't waste it. Don't waste it. Take advantage of it, and just cherish every day that we're on this earth.
Thank you, sir. That's fantastic. That's fantastic message. If it was possible, I would even underline it because I totally fall in love in those words. Yes. And also, I would just add, we can't forget about that inner child and let that inner child keep exploring.
Yes, absolutely.
And lastly, where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, so the simplest way to do that is to go to my personal website. I mean, I have a practice website, but my personal website is DrEmilioJusto.com, and that's spelled DrEmilioJusto, DrEmilioJusto.com. And on there, you can keep up on all the various things that I'm doing. There's a section where, I've been on dozens of podcasts. I have those on there. I have all sorts of magazine articles. But there's a contact page. And if you fill out the contact page with your name and email address and whatever question you have, that will come directly to my inbox. And I'm extremely good about replying back. If not the same day, certainly within a maximum of 24 hours, I will reply back personally to answer your question, or if I can be of any other assistance, or someone needs a guest speaker or a guest on a podcast like here today, I'm more than happy to do so.
Yes,
Thank you.
I can totally confirm Dr. Rusto is answering and replying in 24 hours. That's true. Thank you so much, by the way.
Thank you, Miroslav. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Your story is a powerful reminder, by the way, that setbacks don't define us. Our mindset and actions do. To all men listening, remember, it's never too late to rewrite your story and step into the life you deserve. If today's episode inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to connect with Dr. Rustom. His wisdom can truly change lives. Dr. Rustom, thank you for joining us, Private 45, and sharing your incredible journey.
Thank you so very much, Miroslav. It's been a wonderful time together. I've enjoyed it immensely. And thank you and your audience for having me on. Thank you.
You're very welcome. This is Private 45, and we'll see you in the next episode. Keep thriving.